dear friends, my dear masters, and my dear gods, welcome to this episode of magnificent spiritual wisdom from the great spiritual author Harold Percival. Through his book, Thinking and Destiny, he has offered us the best of spiritual wisdom, and we are indeed grateful to this great soul. We are also grateful to Brahmarshi Pitamaha Patriji, who has introduced this book to us to enable us to distribute this wisdom among all the spiritual seekers in the world. I am S.K. Rajan here, representing the Indian Federation of Spiritual Scientists as its Vice Chairman. I have with me Brahma Vidvarishta Girija Rajan and Purnima. Both are senior meditators, being connected to meditation for over 22 years. After all of us met Brahmarshi Patriji in the year 1998. Thanks to Patriji, we have been able to do a lot of swadhyaya, that is reading of books and understanding what all the spiritual knowledge is. Today's topic is Death is Destiny. So the message conveyed by Percival will be read by me, and we will be having the comments from these great masters. I can assure you that whatever Harold Percival has conveyed to us is not from any other author, any other institution, or any other body of spiritual people or religious people, but it is gathered by him after he had certain myriad experiences with light, and from then on, all the message was passed through him to humanity. So he has been the conduit for passing the message, and so it is for us to take whatever portions are relevant to us so that we are able to proceed further in this spiritual journey. So off I start on this great topic. Everything after death is destiny, and that is what we have to understand. So death is destiny is the topic. Everything after death happens as destiny. The human cannot determine anything after death. Lessons are given to him, but he cannot make use of them until he gets back to earth and lives in a flesh body. The reason that he cannot control anything after death is that choice is possible only while on the common ground. After death, the human is subject to illusions as he was in life. In life, he cannot see anything as it is. He sees everything as massed together and sees nothing by itself. Therefore, he sees things that are temporary as permanent, and he sees only the outside of things and not the causes which draw the things together. He does not see the changes that go to make the outside change. He cannot distinguish between himself and nature, nor can he be distinguished, nor can he distinguish the four senses which are part of nature from himself. He fears to let go of the four senses and what they connect him with, as though he would lose himself if he lost them. He depends for permanence on nature, which is ever changing, is mistaken about his identity. Only those who have overcome the illusions of life can control them after death. and so master the destiny which is theirs.
Hi, friends. Master Percival has given us a great picture of how this life and afterlife is for the common man. He says that we are actually all in a kind of illusion. Impermanent things look permanent for the common man. We get completely kind of totally lost in the material world. We get lost in that in the outside look of the material world, and we don't connect ourselves the connect with the connect to the inner part of ourselves. And so what happens is we will never have a control of our after death states. So we will be actually what happens there, even the we do pre-birth planning before coming here. We do all the planning, but nothing is remembered here. The lessons that we promise to take on ourselves during the earth life, we tend to come here and forget everything. So that is what he goes on to say, and that's the greatest message he's giving. He says that we are so illusioned, and we are taken away so much into the material life that we forget that we are not permanent here. We have to go on to the other worlds. That is the permanent state. The after death is the permanent state of each of ourselves, but we are totally lost here. That is what Percival says.
Yeah, a beautiful reading that. Very great words, pearls of wisdom from him. Every man is seeking happiness, a permanent one at that. He doesn't want to shift between sadness and happiness. But that is what he sees in his life, an ordinary common man. But he tries to get the happiness from the impermanent things that he sees with the physical eyes. He sees all the physical eyes which are impermanent and tries to get happiness from that. So always the impermanent ones will give only impermanent happiness. He cannot get a permanent happiness from things which are impermanent. So instead of seeing the things as they are, he has to see the cause for those things to appear here in front of him. It may be a person, it may be an event, or it may be a thing. But he doesn't go into the source, or reaches the source and reach the source and then find out why they have come here, why that person is in front of me, why that event has to happen. No, that why is not at all there in him, in a common man. He just takes life like that casually or sometimes seriously, so no meaning at all. So the entire life becomes a meaningless life, and again he has to come back in another flesh body in order to lead another life, in order to learn so many things. So this is the basic knowledge that you should have, that you can never get permanent happiness from impermanent things. That is what man has to learn. That Percival has rightly put it, and even our Pitamaha Patriji used to often tell us, and he also makes us remember the words of great Adi Shankaracharya, Anitya Viveka Vicharam. That is, we should know which is permanent, which is Nitya, which is Anitya. Nitya means permanent, Anitya means which is impermanent. So we should differentiate between the two, and we should go to the cause and the source of everything that is there, that we see, we perceive, and we feel. So we should understand the source of everything. Then we will know which is permanent, which is not permanent. And even though we may not see certain things, they are the permanent ones. Like our triune self, we cannot see with the physical eyes, but they are the permanent ones. So often there is no a beginning or end to these things. So such consciousness, all these things are permanent ones, but we don't give much importance to that which we don't see with the physical eyes. We end up with seeing only those things which are really not going to exist for a long time. So our happiness is also short lived. That is why we don't get that continued happiness throughout the life in the same measure, no, it is not possible by man, because he has not understood, he has not driven away his ignorance, he is still in ignorance. He has to replace it with wisdom, and then with knowledge and wisdom, so that there is permanent happiness throughout, that comes from within, that flowers from within. Because he thinks this body, physical body, is permanent, but even a flower, even a leaf has to wither away. So like that, we should understand that even our physical body will last only for a certain period of time, then it has to go away, and we again come back. The consciousness is always permanent, and we come back again. So we should see ourselves as a permanent consciousness, and the others also are permanent consciousness, so that we don't give importance to. So unless we understand these things, we will never get continued happiness in our lives.
The human beings themselves cause the acceleration or retardation of the time of their re-existence by what they think while they are embodied, and by how they act in relation to this thinking. The determining factor is whether its feeling and thinking keep a doer with the physical world or take it away from physical conditions. A human hastens his return by trying to see facts as they are, by doing his duties without hope of reward or fear of disadvantage, by working to achieve his ideals, and by having ideals not too far ahead of the attainment. The time for the return is delayed when a human sees only a part of the facts and longs for things to be different, when he fears the coming of events, when he does good in the hope of reward, or refrains from wrong for fear of punishment, when he thinks much about heaven and hell and longs for the one or fears the other, or when he thinks without putting his thinking into practice. Plotting evil deeds even without doing them will tend to bring a doer back soon, because its feelings and thoughts are with the present and with the earth. Thinking ideally, even though it is of the earth, postpones the return to earth because it relates to the future. Occupation or position in life have in themselves not much influence, but the thinking which they permit or engender has. A cobbler at work may think of an ideal government or a philosophy. A country person may think far beyond his present field of action. Such thinking may keep them away a long time. On the other hand, a pawnbroker, an undertaker, or a lawyer may never get beyond the hard facts of his life, not the philosophy of need, death, and strife, but chiefly what they themselves can get out of them, or their pursuits attract their thinking. Such thinking would bring them back soon. Generally, practical thinking and its transference into immediate acts shortens the absence from physical life.
So, his Percival here has given us a picture of how each occupation or each person in a particular occupation, how their thinking will be, and how they will have those thinking and get back to earth very soon after the death states. So they don't actually think beyond this. They always think something connected with the earth, so that immediately brings them back to earth. So how our thinking should be, he's trying to explain to us here. So each person, for example a lawyer or a pawnbroker or some other examples which he has given, their thinking is always connected to the earthly affairs. So how we those kinds of thinking brings us back to the earth soon, and some other thinking, if it is for the wellness of everyone, maybe be they will extend their stay in the other worlds, is what Percival is trying to explain to us here.
Yes, beautifully put by our Percival. So he says there is a marked difference between two persons whose thinking are totally different in the way that they live here on this earth, and the way they come back soon, or they extend their stay in the other worlds. So these two are the difference between two entities or two persons who may by their thinking they may come to the earth plane again after a lifetime, again to another lifetime very soon. Whereas a person who thinks philosophically, who thinks about the source of everything, who talks about the impermanence of this world, physical world, all those matters, the spiritual matters, they mean much more to a person. That person will not come to the earth plane and to have the physicality soon at all. He will have a longer period in the other permanent worlds than spend time here, because he is almost learnt his lessons, and by the life becomes life, physical life here, the physicality that he enjoys will become shorter and shorter. He need not come here that very often, because he is in the path of spirituality and he started learning. So when we enter spirituality, yes, we do learn very fast, and so it shortens our period on this earth, in the sense that more often we need not come. Many lifetimes are saved, because there is no need for us to learn from this physical world. Whereas a person who is otherwise engaged only in the physical matters, not at all spiritually inclined, is the rudimentary souls and just baby souls, those souls will be young souls. They all need more lifetimes on this earth, because they need to learn. That is what he conveys to us. So this is all very well explained even by Patriji, by Peter Richelieu in his book Soul's Journey. So very beautifully put by our great Percival also.
One other point I would like to add, that's one thing I would like to say here is, he says how our thinking goes on to affect our afterlife also. So how conscious we should be. That is the only message we get from this whole paragraph.
Yeah, being conscious as well as knowing things. So you should get to know the truth of things very easily here. We should learn our lessons very easily with awareness. Then it will be definitely our afterlife will be based on this thinking, and it will continue for a longer time than the person who has not yet learnt his lessons.
In the after death states, ages and eternities of suffering and of bliss can be experienced in short terms as measured by physical time. To the doers in their subjective states, physical time does not exist. Long or short periods as measured by physical time mean nothing to them. Whether a long or a short absence from the common ground is advantageous depends upon various conditions. No absolute statement applicable to all the doers or even to any one doer can be made to cover the many situations on the common ground and the varying conditions of doers at certain times. Generally speaking, it is better for human beings who have goodwill and who work for the benefit of others to come back soon. Their return gives them at least the opportunity to think and work and thereby to accomplish something. But an early return may be bad if the human comes into a period for which he is not prepared and therefore has a disposition to escape from destiny, or if he comes with handicaps such as an infirm body. Still, such impediments may be resisted and overcome, and the situation be turned to advantage. Sometimes human beings who come back too soon cannot accomplish their work because they have not had a sufficient period of dreamless rest after the end of their heaven period. For lack of that rest, they may be unequal to opportunities, unprepared for events, or without vigor to make or carry out the plans. Even unfitting times into which a human is born and in which he is out of place and not understood may become advantageous if he faces his environment bravely or if he learns something from it.
So beautifully he has put here that how each one gets back according to their thinking again. Some people have good thinking for the others and have a mind of service, that is service minded, so those people come back and it will be beneficial for so many other people, and they can also work out their other karmas if there is any, and with service they can burn all those karmas, and it is good that way if they come back. And some others, they come back too quickly is what he's telling, and they're unprepared and not ready to face the earth life here. And for them, but if they have a brave attitude, then I think they will have a better life here is what Percival is telling. And how he also goes on to say how time is so very different here and on the other worlds, the other planes, it is so very different. Here it might be one yuga and there it might be a second, just a second that has passed. So it's a very different time is so very different in both the worlds. So some people, he says, need rest, and they need that rest to come out of the after that death states and plan accordingly their next life. So each one takes his time there in the other worlds and plan their life, earth life, taking their own time, and they plan it in a beautiful way. So that is what Percival is trying to tell. Each person has a different plan or different purpose to accomplish every lifetime. So it's beautifully put by Percival.
Yeah, it is very good explanation by Purnima. That is what I have understood from his this paragraph is that every human being who is born here he should face all the events and all those persons or things with commitment, with boldness. So he should be able, he should make himself ready. He should have that vigor to face it. Otherwise, the whole life will become meaningless. He's going on postponing everything and not learning. Then it will become a boredom for him. So even this life, even after life, both will become boring. So he should not do that. It will be he will see only tardiness in his life, and there will not be any event, any charm in the life at all. So it goes without any effect. So he should not do that. He should immediately, if an event comes to him, if a situation arises in such a way that he is unable to face it, then he should think that I have been postponing this for a long time. So now the time has come. I have been given the chance, the situation, and the correct place and time for me to overcome this. So you should develop such a boldness, and of course the boldness doesn't come that very easily. Spiritual practices definitely help to have a balanced and a bold and a courageous mind. Yeah, definitely with a lot of clarity. So you should take to spiritual practices early itself. So if a person thinks of death and afterlife, which are very much obscure in front of him, definitely a person will try to understand that and take to spiritual path. And then with both material and spiritual path in equal measure, he will be able to lead a grand life here. So his life after this also will be grand. Otherwise, both will be without any meaning, without any attraction, without any sort of an interest. So it will be again it will be a waste of time for him. So the better, that sooner it is the better. So we will try to understand the meaning of life. We should know that we have come here for a purpose. We have not come here just like that. So just to pass our time for a holiday, not like that. this is a great school. We have not come here for holiday. We have come here for learning something. So that responsibility should bloom in the minds of every human being. So yes, definitely after hearing Percival's wisdom, definitely they will be moving toward that direction. And I'm sure every person will think over and make his life much more meaningful than it is at present.
The disposal of the body of the deceased can have an influence on the earlier or later return of the doer. Cremation or the devouring of the body by birds or fishes frees the compositor units from the influence of the fourfold physical body. Then the physical earth loses all the hold on the four senses and on the breath form. Thereby, the doer is set free from the physical influence which the earth exerted through the senses and the breath form. In the case of burial, the physical earth can continue its influence through the fourfold body on the compositor units and retard their freedom until decay dissipates the physical body. Embalming and mummification retard the decay of the body and hold transient units in the body. The compositor units are not affected. When death takes place, the body of transient unit remains. The breath form with the senses and the compositor units leave the body at once, but there remains the magnetic connection between the compositor units and the physical body. Cremation destroys at once the fourfold physical body and the influence of the physical earth on the breath form and the compositors. When the dominating thought of the next doer portion to re-exist presses for re-existence, the after-death states of the preceding portion are hastened. Then the Aya vivifies the breath form, which makes contact with the parents to be through their breaths for conception.
So this is a very important topic which we have to understand, friends. So Percival has told us about what happens and how our after death, that is how our physical body is done with here, should be understood. How cremation is the best way to dispose of the body is he's mentioning here. He says he mentions that in burial what happens is it retards the the compositor units, or the fourfold body is not connected, or it is not coming on to the after death states. Like it retards the it has to the nature has to take in all the remains completely. Only then the breath form will be let free. So that is one point. And in other types of disposing of the body, he gives all the advantages and disadvantages basically to shows how and he also goes on to say that cremation is the best way to dispose of the body, because the breath form is let off freely just after the cremation, and how this affects the planning of the next birth. That is the most important thing, because when the breath form is let free, it connects with the parents, the would-be parents, the next life. Like suppose we are going to take a birth, so it'll connect with the parents whom we are going to choose, and so that way we will get that state immediately. We'll get a body immediately. So otherwise, in other forms of disposing, that is delayed. So that is what he's trying to say. It's beautifully put. Please do read this portion once again for clarity. So this is the message he is giving.
Yeah, it is really very great paragraph that has been read out to us. So in the earlier paragraph, Percival has listed out in what all ways our afterlife is affected our next birth is affected. Start again. So it is beautifully put forth by Percival. He has listed out the various uh, personalities who either they delay their coming back here and the need for it. So by their thinking, that is one thing. On the other side, it is also another factor that affects our rebirth, re-existence on this earth. That is, at the time of death, what is being done to the dead body. That is very important. If the dead body is buried, then it goes in, it decays naturally. So until the decay happens, all the other things have to wait. The doer has to wait. The breath form has to wait. Even in embalming, it is like that. The decay doesn't happen. Still, the doer is connected to the physicality. So that is why he is unable to set free himself. The doer part. We know that Percival explains that consciousness of a human is of everything is divided into three parts. Only the doer part comes over here. The thinker and knower are somewhere in the permanent realms. So the doer has to get himself free. After undergoing a set of experiences in this life, the end comes and the body dies. The doer has to get free, but it doesn't happen in the case of burial and embalming, or allowing the birds and animals to eat away the portions of the dead body. So until all the portions are eaten away and digested, the doer doesn't get away from that body. That is what Percival clearly explains to us. So only in the case of burning of the dead body, immediately the doer comes out. Then he gets away from this, and he is cut off from the physical feelings and goes to another realm, where the Aya in conjunction with the breath form, even the breath form is set free, and in conjunction with the breath form, the next life is planned, and they think of the parents. Even parents are being selected at that time for a next birth or re-existence on this earth plane. So it is easier in the case of burning of the body, whereas it takes a long time for us to go into the after state itself. Then think of being there for a long time or a short time again to come back. So all these things may delay the process. So he says the best way to dispose of a dead body is by burning the body.
If the former body is not decomposed, there may be a lethal influence from the disintegrating astral on the astral that is being built in the mother. The astral of the dead body may affect the compositor units that are fashioning the new body in the womb, and may bring morbid sensations to the mother, and may transmit prenatally tendencies to disease or to badness. Usually, the time that must elapse between re-embodiments is at least the time necessary for the compositor units to become free from the magnetic influence of the decaying body. In the case of cremation, the compositors are set free from this influence at once. In the case of decay, they are free when the organs which they managed have reached a certain state of decomposition. This may take place within a few months. The bones made up as they are of transient units in the solid state are the last to disintegrate and the least important. Doers may be absent from earth life for thousands of years. This occurs where the conditions marked by physical time do not afford to their dominant thoughts means for unfolding, to their talents a field for display, to their virtues suitable environment, and to their ideals a people who understand them and are like them. Many doers that belong to heights of former ages of the earth, water, air, and fire are excluded from re-existence.
So here again he goes on to say all about the planning of the next lifetime and how disposing of the body is very important, the way we dispose of. He says with burial what happens is the decay, until the decay happens completely, the compositor units are not free, and whereas with cremation the compositor units are free, and it also affects the astral body that is being formed in the mother's womb. It affects the astral body, he says, and it comes up as a disease in the fetus of the mother. So that happens if the disposing is through burial or other means like leaving it to decay by itself. So all this is so many subtle things happen which we do not know. So he says that burning of the body, that is cremation, is the best way, and we will have a good physical body for the next life on earth.
Yeah, it is beautifully put by Percival. What he means by fourfold physical body is the four elements by which the physical body is made up of. So when the breath form is trying to, in conjunction with the Aya, the force, life force, to re-exist. So when it is trying like that and selecting the parents, what happens? This physical body is fully not yet decayed. It is not yet gone. So the astral portion of that physical body will come over to interfere with the new astral body that is being created for this fetus that is going to be in the womb of the mother. So all these things are there subtly happening, which we may not see at all. But these small things will happen, and that will greatly affect the health of the mother and also of the baby. So naturally, to avoid all these things is the best way is to dispose of the dead body by cremation. And furthermore, he says a doer may take 1,000 years before he comes back again into this physical world, because he may not choose it that very early, and he'll be there he'll be busy in selecting his the environment, because his virtues have to come about in the life to be, and he should have such people around him who are like him. So like that he has to keep on choosing so many things, whereas the time is not lost in all these things. Very easily it is all done, because the Aya's help is there for the breath form. It is already printed there. So it is all the more easier if the body is cremated. That is what Percival says. Otherwise, the doer has to wait for an inordinate amount of time before he gets into another incarnation, or he tries to re-exist on this earth plane.
So friends, we wind up this episode of Death is Destiny with the words that only those who have overcome the illusions of life can control them after death, and so master the destiny which is theirs. This is the crux of the whole episode today. So we will meet again in the next episode. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.